This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Yoga Nidra, which is derived from the tantras, is a powerful technique in which you learn to relax consciously. In Yoga Nidra, sleep is not regarded as relaxation. People feel that they are relaxing when they collapse in an easy chair with a cup of coffee, a drink, or a cigarette, and read a newspaper or switch on the television. But this will never suffice as a scientific definition of relaxation. These are only sensory diversions. True relaxation is actually an experience far beyond all this. For absolute relaxation, you must remain aware. This is Yoga Nidra, the state of dynamic sleep. Yoga Nidra is a systematic method of inducing complete physical, mental, and emotional relaxation. The term Yoga Nidra is derived from two Sanskrit words, yoga, meaning union or one-pointed awareness, and nidra, which means sleep. During the practice of Yoga Nidra, one appears to be asleep, but the consciousness is functioning at a deeper level of awareness. For this reason, Yoga Nidra is often referred to as psychic sleep, or deep relaxation with inner awareness. In this threshold state between sleep and wakefulness, contact with the subconscious and unconscious dimensions occurs spontaneously. In Yoga Nidra, the state of relaxation is reached by turning inwards, away from outer experiences. If the consciousness can be separated from external awareness and from sleep, it becomes very powerful and can be applied in many ways. For example, to develop the memory, increase knowledge and creativity, or transform one's nature. Valeria interviews Ruthie Eisenberg, LMFT, LPCC, PMHC, RYT 500. She is a compassionate psychotherapist with over a decade of experience, specializing in anxiety, depression, and maternal mental health. Additionally, Ruthie is a dedicated yoga student and teacher with comprehensive training in Ashtanga, Vinyasa, Yin, and Yoga Nidra. She is the creator and host of the Na'ala Yoga Nidra Journeys for Deep Rest Plus podcast, where she shares the transformative power of Yoga Nidra, a practice that has deeply impacted her own life. When Ruthie was introduced to Yoga Nidra during her very first yoga teacher training, her life changed beyond what she could have imagined. What began as a personal journey soon evolved into a passion for sharing this gently transformative practice with others by crafting culturally sensitive journeys steeped in reverence for both the yogic lineage and Jewish tradition, while remaining inclusive to people of all cultures. Every episode is created from the heart with mindfulness and love. In her private practice, mental fitness therapy, Ruthie offers personalized holistic healing using a handful of modalities, Yoga Nidra guidance, and group sessions, helping clients manage stress, reconnect with their inner selves, and heal from within. Ruthie has 100% trust in her clients' abilities to heal themselves when given the right conditions. Ruthie enjoys blending yoga, psychology, and spirituality throughout daily life and practices what she preaches. To experience the benefits of Yoga Nidra, tune in to Na'ala Yoga Nidra Journeys for Deep Rest Plus, or connect with Ruthie through her practice. Meet Ruthie at mentalfitnesstherapy.org and naalayoga.podbean.com. Here's the interview with Ruthie Eisenberg.
In your own words, who is Ruthie Eisenberg?
Ruthie is a lifelong student. She loves to learn from everyone and everything. Ruthie is someone who feels very grateful to be here, walking on this earth, living this life, and being able to bring healing and support to others. Life is such a messy thing sometimes, and the problems can feel lighter if we're walking through them together and supporting each other. And I love to break down barriers and build bridges between different groups of people who might not otherwise be interacting. I love exploring. I love nature, spirituality. I'm oriented in the Jewish spiritual tradition, but also yoga has a very big place in my life. And just a soul here with my feet on the ground, walking this life together with everyone else.
Wow. It's beautiful listening to you. It feels like a song to me. It's interesting how it's almost like the devotional part of me comes up when I hear things like walking together, sharing this experience called life together, being grateful for everything that's here, this resonance with spirituality, with nature. I mean, doing healing work, everything that you just spoke of that symbolize somewhat what you are, which, from my perspective, it's it's beyond any experience. But talk to me for a moment about a piece that's really a big one for most of us to, let's say, integrate, to accept, and to really experience and embody, is the concept of gratitude, being grateful for everything, despite of the challenges that we face. So I'd love for you to talk to me a bit more about this piece.
Yeah. Well, gratitude it's a mindset. So I think that we're so lucky to be here on this planet for this lifetime. Our life is something that's not to be taken for granted. We didn't have to be here, and just having a human body that is able to create and to do things, it's really such a gift. So just being here, even with all the challenges, all the struggles, all the difficulties, all the collective trauma that human beings we experience, it's still a gift to be here. And I'm reminded of this is a story from Jewish folklore about a village in Eastern Europe where people were having a lot of hardships and suffering a lot. And their leader, he was very ill and he was dying. And the people asked, when you go up to heaven, can you intervene on our behalf that God should help improve things for us and take away all of our suffering? And this leader promised that he will intervene on their behalf. And then he passed away, and time went by and things didn't get better. In fact, they only got more difficult and the challenges continued. And the leader came to one of the townspeople in a dream. And the person asked him, did you forget your promise? You promised to intervene and ask to take away our suffering. And this leader said, well, I intended to keep my promise, but from my perspective from here, I don't see anything bad happening. So sometimes from our perspective, down here on earth, it can feel like, you know, the suffering is just so big and intense and endless, but we don't have the whole picture. We're just one pixel in the picture.
Wow. Yes, what an insightful story. Yes, a billion times to that. And I wonder if we can have this perspective or this perception why in the human body. I have heard of some spiritual, let's say, realized beings and spiritual teachers that have in this moment they're living actually this reality of seeing everything is perfect. Do you feel that this is something that's realistic and possible, Ruthie, or just a story?
That everything is perfect?
Yes, from the perspective of the divine lens.
I'd like to believe so, because perfect doesn't mean pleasant. It doesn't mean that it will always feel good. So I believe that, you know, life is easier and more meaningful if we believe that there is a grander plan that we just can't see from our perspective.
Right.
And actually, you know, in nature also, like, even if we go out to the forest and we zoom in on, like, you know, one inch of grass or 1 inch of nature, right? We can see all this stuff happening in there. We can see that there's things that are imperfect, right? If you look at like a honeycomb, right, and the hexagon shapes, if we really zero in, they're not really perfect. But if we zoom out, then it looks really, you know, really neat and organized and symmetrical. So I think that we just, you know, we're mirrors of nature, and we can use this perspective to understand our own human experience.
Yes, I love that. That's a beautiful metaphor too, or an example of that. Yes. How did you get to this perspective that you have that sounds so wise? Is that something that it came with you per se when you came into this human existence, or you have learned from others or in your own experiences?
So I don't know if I came with this perspective from the beginning, but I've always been from the beginning very connected to nature, and also spirituality. So I started out life as a child in Russia, and I lived there until I was 7 years old. And I'm really glad to not live there anymore, especially these days.
Right.
But back then, we divided time between a summer house in the rural hills of Russia, in the country, and spend the days in digging for potatoes in the fields and exploring the gardens and foraging in the forest. So really like working the ground and working the earth every day. At the same time, you know, I was also taught spirituality, but in my family, it was very dormant for several generations. My grandpa is actually he was a child Holocaust survivor, and he was the only one from his family that survived. And after that, in Russia, during like the Stalinist times, religion was completely outlawed and forbidden. It wasn't taught in schools. There was no religious paraphernalia anywhere. So my family kind of lost this this knowledge of what it means to be practicing any kind of religion. But at the same time, a lot of my family members remained spiritual and connected at the soul. They knew that they were Jewish. They knew that this is something that's an integral part of our identity. But there was just no outlet to practice it. So when we moved to America, that's when that's when my family got reconnected to our roots and to these practices, both religious, but also really spiritual. So I think with the spirituality and the spiritual perspective is something that I've learned from my ancestors, my family, my community, my teachers. I've been lucky to have a lot of just wonderful teachers and mentors. So from reading books, and also from my own personal exploration and journeys and meditations. So it's something that evolved along the way and continues to evolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing how it's unfolding, right? This path.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound, it's just the voice of wisdom, as some say, when I listen to you. So that's why I asked. And it's also because the work you do, of course. So you are I love the way you said that in your bio, it says a compassionate psychotherapist with over a decade of experience specializing in anxiety, depression, and maternal mental health. But you're also a dedicated yoga student and teacher.
Yeah.
And you're the creator of and host of the Nala
Yoga.
Nala Yoga. Yeah, thank you. Nidra, Nalia Yoga Nidra Journeys for Deep Rest Plus podcast. So you're doing a lot. And you also run your own private practice titled Mental Fitness Therapy. So gosh, there's so much to talk about, but the topic is about Yoga Nidra. So I would love actually to know a little bit of the background of and the inspiration for becoming a psychotherapist, a therapist. And also, and then the very first question about Yoga Nidra is, how were you introduced to it? How did you get to know Yoga Nidra?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I was drawn to psychotherapy because on the surface level, I just really enjoyed psychology classes, and that was the thing I was most interested in. So I think this field kind of magnetized me. I feel like I didn't really consciously choose it, but was kind of called or magnetized to do this work. But also I've always loved hearing people's stories and trying to understand how they make sense, and also understand how I make sense through healing other people, through hearing other people's stories. So it's kind of in a nutshell how I was drawn to this field. And then with Yoga Nidra, so it came in the context of my first yoga teacher training. I was doing yoga like on and off, but started having a consistent practice when I was really struggling postpartum with just a lot of stress. And it would take too much effort to get to a gym, but yoga was something that you can just do at home. So I started practicing yoga on a more consistent basis, and then started getting really curious about there's these energetic shifts happening in a yoga practice. And I wanted to know more about, what do these postures mean? What is happening on an energetic level? It seemed like yoga was more than what meets the eye on the mat. So I wanted to learn in a more like systematic and organized way. And I signed up for a yoga teacher training. And part of that training included the practice of Yoga Nidra. Before this training, I would see on YouTube sometimes Yoga Nidra, and it would have a picture of a person laying down. And I used to think like, okay, that looks kind of boring. Like they're just laying down doing nothing. I want to exercise. I want to work out,
Right.
So I've always kind of skipped over those things. But when it was taught in my yoga teacher training, it literally opened my eyes to a whole nother world. And and it changed my life. I started practicing yoga nidra on a regular basis, and my work schedule was kind of all over the place between like work and family and my kids. My sleep schedule was kind of inconsistent just due to life circumstances. So yoga nidra really helped me. It helped to preserve my mental health, and it helped me to even, I don't recommend this to people, but even on nights when I had limited sleep, doing yoga nidra helped me to feel focused and calm and have enough energy for the next day and to actually feel good the next day. So it was a real game changer. And, I don't recommend yoga nidra as like a replacement for sleep or anything like that. But it really is a very restorative, very healing practice that just does a lot of good things for not only your nervous system, but every system in your body.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about the impact of that in your life, and what's the first thing that you felt after a session or experiencing the yoga nidra? Is that you mentioned energy, so you felt better? Is there anything else beyond, I would say, like the physical and the mental? Do you also felt more, let's say, intuitive in a sense of listening to your being in a deeper way? Because I do have, I get the experience a lot of, I feel a lot more, there's a lot more intuitive thinking at play after I do a session. Is that something that you have experienced it too, Ruthie?
Yes, definitely. Yoga nidra, the yoga nidra is special because, and it's different from other types of meditations because it goes through a method. It goes through the layers of being from the physical all the way to the soul. So yoga nidra is a practice that really, it touches the soul. And for me, when I practice yoga nidra, I do feel more, I feel more connected to this on the soul level. I feel like I can kind of operate more from the heart and from in a more embodied kind of way. Things just kind of flow more easily. And it's like it creates this almost like this clarity that just makes going through the day a lot easier than on, let's say, days when I don't do yoga nidra. And it also opens up creative channels too. One of the macro consequences of practicing yoga nidra led to creating this podcast, Nale Yoga. I would have never even thought to create a podcast if those creative channels weren't open, but practicing yoga nidra really inspired me to create my own yoga nidra practices that were attuned to the Jewish culture. So and it was just so easy and felt so natural or organic to write these practices and to express them. I really credit the practice itself for that.
Yes, I feel the same way. Exactly the same way. So there's something that I read. You sent me a lot of materials to read, and this really caught my attention. It's called the Sankalpa. I'm not sure if I pronounced Sankalpa. Yes. Yeah. So what is that? Because I was reading the description, but I couldn't quite grasp the meaning of the word.
Yeah. So a Sankalpa it really means a resolve. And it's it's the promise of our own truth.
Mm.
And a sankalpa in a yoga nidra practice is something that we plant at the beginning. And it's like planting a seed in the ground. We plant it, we set it into motion. It's like putting an envelope in the mailbox, and then it's out there, it's in the universe. We let it go and we wait and we nurture it. And with time and patience, it comes to fruition.
Right.
So a sankalpa, it's a short, positive, I am declaration to self. It's an affirmation, it's a resolve, it's an expression of your most heartfelt truth, like your mission, your quest. Why are you here on this earth? What is your soul? What is your soul here for? So
Right.
that's kind of at the essence of a sankalpa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gosh, thank you
Yeah.
for explaining that.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me because I just got into the practice of yoga nidra really naturally, organically. For some reason, it was something that it's almost as if I already knew the practice.
Yeah.
I came across the idea, and then I heard a few things about it, and then that was it for me. I was almost like it was almost like an activation, some sort of awakening of a knowledge that was dormant, which is so fascinating to see. I need to witness that, right, with the intellect, with the rational mind.
Yeah.
So when I read the materials that you sent me, the presentation, when I read that word, sankalpa, it was familiar to me. I almost went to that place, that part of the section at the what do you call that? Yeah, the slide instantly. So there's something that's in the body mind resonates with. And then when I was reading the description, I was like, oh my God, this is it. So it's the heart of the practice. It's your resolve, as you said. So the question that comes to mind is, which for a lot of us, when we engage in practice like this, especially when we tap into the, like you call, the soul's purpose, our potential, our expression here in this lifetime, we tap into it for a moment, and then for some reason, the rational mind, after a few days, starts to doubt that. And then there's a lot of, oh, maybe I was just dreaming, or maybe this is just out of of this reality for now. It's not something for me because it seems to me far away from my way of living right now. So talk to me about this transition. How do we make peace with this potential, the soul's calling, and really get to realize it? And is that courage? I would love, or does it take more practice of yoga nidra? I would love to hear that from your perspective.
Yeah. I love what you're saying about courage.
Yes.
It takes courage to make a promise to yourself. Yeah. I think with the sankalpa, it's about continuously reinforcing it. So we can extend the sankalpa beyond the yoga nidra practice. It's very powerful to plant it in a yoga nidra practice specifically, because when we plant it in the beginning, we're still in our analytical brain, right? And then we go through the layers of consciousness, and first we relax the body, then we move into the sheath of breath and emotion, then we move into the sheath of the mind, then we move into the sheath of the unconscious and deeper mind, and then we move into the sheath of the soul. At the end of the practice, the body is relaxed, the mind is relaxed. Then we bring back and we call in the sankalpa again, and from that space, that's where the sankalpa can really start to be more embodied and integrated on a deeper cellular level. it can go from, just being a sentence that we say to something that we really know and believe to be true. We feel it to be the truth. So, I'll give an example of a very simple sankalpa, right?
Yeah.
So let's say we have a sankalpa of, I am healthy in my body and mind, right? We can say it as a sentence, but let's say somebody is really struggling with anxiety or a medical condition, or symptoms where their health is compromised, right? So we might say I'm healthy in my body and mind, but I don't know how much that might not register, right? Because it's not totally true, right?
Yeah.
So, and we always have to say a sankalpa in the present tense, like, this is the reality now. It's not something that will happen in the future. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the practice, when actually the body and the mind, everything is more relaxed, and the person has access to their deeper unconscious, they have access to source energy at that point, then saying, I am healthy in my body and mind can start to feel more true, can start to feel like, I deserve to be healthy in my body and mind. Here in these places in my body is where I feel the health. I might feel health in my feet. I might feel health in my heart. I am healthy in my body. This area of the brain is where I'm feeling health. So then it starts to really be more believed and integrated. But you're right when you say that, okay, so we have this great experience during a practice, and then a few days afterwards, it can fade away, right? So we want to keep coming back to these practices. Yoga Nidra is something that works best cumulatively when it's practiced, on a consistent basis. So and a sankalpa can also be practiced beyond Yoga Nidra. It could be practiced we could remind ourselves of the sankalpa in the morning. We can journal about it. We can remind us of the sankalpa before a meeting or before kids come home from school or whatever it is, right? During prayer, meditation, we can always conjure up and remind of the sankalpa. And the more that we remind ourselves of this, the more it becomes our truth.
Yes. That's a very insightful answer. The steps to, I love what you said about doing, so it becomes a practice, Yoga Nidra practice with the sankalpa. I love the name too, and the pronunciation of it. And then also throughout the day. Right? That makes sense. A question that comes to mind, another question is when I mentioned courage, and I think the reason why it's because what I felt when I was practicing Yoga Nidra in the very beginning was that I was not fully embodied in my soul's journey or mission or purpose. But it did come that way. It was, the language is just kind of evolved. Now I use those words, but it felt very true that something in me wanted to be closer to nature, more closer to nature than I am now. So the body was not really where it's supposed to be. So it was, for some reason, that was the message one. And then the second was the community. Like I have a community online. I mean, a beautiful community online, but I don't have it in here, the location that I live. So those two things, like they kept dancing, around me. And I don't know what the intention, the sankalpa, I don't know what I don't know what I asked. But anyway, that came. So it's beyond like, it's a feeling. Of course, the body a lot of times feels that I'm already refreshed. And it feels so amazing. It's almost like I'm not here anymore for some reason. And then I just kind of relocate and I'm elsewhere with all this beautiful nature around me and connected to people that spiritual and all that. But then, is that something that would that be enough in a way, Ruthie? Oh, just the feeling of it, or now we have to take the step to embody that truth and kind of, sell the house and move somewhere else, closer to nature and etc. Yes, that's my question.
Yeah. Well, I love how you're thinking of how to integrate some of these realizations you had. I'm curious, I'm curious, what do
Yes.
you think? Is there a part of you that's being called to make active changes in your life, to whether it's relocation or bringing like more nature into your existing life situation
Yes.
as it is, and building more kind of community under your current circumstances? I'm kind of curious, like how are you integrating it in? Yeah.
Yes. So that was the initial kind of vision and felt sense. And then, of course, yeah, I'm very, I don't know what he, courageous. I'm very curious and very courageous too.
Yeah.
So, yes. And then the more open I became throughout the day, and I kept asking for signs. So you just show me the signs.
Yeah.
And then I kept kind of seeing things. Perhaps I should mention here, but I will. The election, Trump won the election.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to look. I was looking at the map because they have this map online that shows like the place where he was very popular and he won like at a higher percentage. I was curious about what states, maybe because I was already thinking about moving. I live in Florida.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay.
yeah. And then I found a place, and that's Hawaii. That was like beautiful, the nature in Kauai specifically. So, and then when I came across that, it's one thing after another, and they just matched perfectly what something in me was looking for. And because I never thought rationally, I never thought about Hawaii ever. I come from Brazil, and it's beautiful there and tropical and all, but I never I never visited there. I have no idea what it's like, but I heard beautiful things about it, of course. But then everything came together, and then it was, okay, Kauai, that's the place to move to, because it's surrounded by mountains and water, and you're constantly in nature. And that was the place. And then the second thing is bringing this online platform to the physical reality, the physical world. So it would be a facility there, and then we would meet there to have this conversation instead of online. Oh, we probably would have online too, but then in person as well. So that people travel there, we have retreats, and we have these podcasts in person. So all this just came together, but that's not something new. I built this whole vision, and I even created a mock, I think they call mock, like for it. That was in 2015. So with this center, Fit for Joy and all that.
Yeah.
So now everything is coming back, but in a much more, let's say, systematic way. It's very intuitive, but at the same time, it's giving me the steps, what to do exactly. Like I can see everything. Of course, it's not something that it can be done immediately. There are steps to it. And but I already put the house for sale and all that. So yes, I did that. And my husband, it's going along, which is wonderful. I have a dog too. I don't have kids, but that's where I am now, and it feels really great. The thought of it just kind of opens the heart. It becomes very warm. Everything that's it.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's the power of yoga nidra, I have to tell you.
Yeah, it really is. And also the power of, talk about courage, but also the power of, the integration of it. You had this experience and you're listening to that inner voice. You're listening to that calling, and, and it sounds like the way is being laid out in front of you, and you're just kind of following the flow, following the clarity. That's
Yes.
beautiful. I want to come to your retreat center in Hawaii.
That would be amazing. Oh my God, Ruthie, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
For
keep me
sure.
posted.
Oh, and I just keep looking at pictures and things. It's just beautiful. Have you been there?
I haven't, but I really want to visit Hawaii.
I heard it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially that specific island for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not that populated, so it's very nature is almost intact. So it's I heard it's incredible. Like it feels really amazing to be there physically.
Yeah. Wow.
So I feel like I'm already there. It's funny. A lot of times I know I have to be present here with the body, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
So I like to move into it's almost like going back to the beginning when it comes to Yoga Nidra. You explain what it is, but anyone who wants to try it, like when they listen to this episode, what is the best way to do it? Like, what are the steps to try Yoga Nidra? Can they try on their own like I did, or it's best to have an instructor like you?
It's very simple Yoga Nidra, and if somebody wants to try it on their own, then this is one of the most simple, accessible tools that's out there. So you can just listen to a guided audio, and you can find one on YouTube. You can find a podcast that you resonate with. And it's just one click away. So there's a few things to keep in mind when you practice Yoga Nidra, which is that you want to be in a comfortable space that's quiet and free of distractions. And you want to be prepared with some props. So, especially if you're just starting out, you might need a pillow or a blanket. Make sure that your room is not too light, not too dark. So just making yourself really comfortable and in a place where you can remain still for a while. It's even if you have a very busy day, you can practice a shorter Yoga Nidra. Some of them are as short as 10 minutes, and that still counts for something. If you have the time to practice a longer Yoga Nidra, then that will take you through a more comprehensive journey. Sometimes in 10 minutes, you can't get through everything. And so in 10 minutes, you can get through the main things, but to really spend time connecting with your soul, you might need like a longer journey, but it's a very easy, accessible practice. Sometimes people think that, sometimes people think that, okay, maybe I'm supposed to be feeling this way, or I'm, supposed to be thinking this way. But in Yoga Nidra, it really is very simple instruction. You just make yourself comfortable and try to remain still and as aware as you can. So it's best to remain awake for the practice so that you can witness the subtle interactivity between the body and mind and soul. But if you fall asleep, which most people do, especially in the beginning, then it means your body really needs that sleep, and you'll still benefit from the practice while you're asleep. Your consciousness is still going to pick up on the messages. So sometimes people feel bad about falling asleep, but I say it's a win-win, because either you get a really good nap or you get a really conscious nap. So
yes.
So it's a win-win either way.
One way or another. Yes.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing practice.
Yeah.
Does it replace physical exercise or yoga? Is that or we should still exercise regularly?
No, it does not. So, yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to, burn calories and build muscle and flexibility while laying down and not moving, that's not how our body is designed. So we still need to move around, and we need the physical exercise as well. But we want to have this balance, because in modern life, most people are actually, their nervous system and their their body is under stress. So
Right.
anybody who uses technology on a regular basis, anybody who hears, white noise from the street or from appliances, this is low level stress in the nervous system. And I'm not even talking about, like just the stressors of daily life and responsibilities and relationships and all of that stuff.
Right.
So if you're a human being living in, today's day and age, then it's really, sometimes we think that, okay, when I rest and relaxation means like getting your nails done or scrolling on the phone or whatever, reading a book. But for the body, it doesn't get registered as really true rest and relaxation, because the brain is still turned on. The body is still working. Really true restorative relaxation is when we can shut off all of the sensory channels, or as many as possible. In Yoga Nidra, the only one that we keep is hearing. But we shut off vision, we shut off movement, we shut off touch, right? We shut off all of the sensory channels so that we can really just turn the senses inward and take and give our analytical mind and our physical body an opportunity to truly take a break from everything. And and when the body is still, then, and the mind is quiet, then the soul can whisper, the soul can, then we can hear and feel the soul.
Right. Yes. A billion times to that. And that's so important. I call it intuition. I know I use the word soul to most spirit than soul for some reason. Are they the same? Do you use those two concepts in the same way?
I guess I would be curious, like, what is the difference between spirit and soul? I know that in the Jewish tradition, there's actually different layers to the soul, which interestingly parallel the 5 sheaths of consciousness in a Yoga Nidra practice, which kind of blows the mind. But spirit, in the Jewish tradition, in my understanding, spirit is something that keeps us alive. It's the animating life force within us. And soul is something that is a little more maybe complex and a little more like the thing that makes us really like unique as human beings. So, like we could say, birds, they have a spirit, right? Do they have a soul? I'm not sure. I would be curious to find out. I don't know. Yes. What do you think? Do you make a distinction between spirit and soul, or?
I mean, we are just using language, right? It's so limited. And we have all these labels, but it resonates what you said. But then we have the mind, and then we have the heart, and then all these pieces, and then intuition, then consciousness itself. So I don't think they're all different things, different aspects of being, but it might be. You're right. It's very complex, I think, especially when it comes to these unique expression tendencies and habits that we have, each one of us as humans. So that's fascinating. That feels to me very much true, that we have had different life, other life experiences, like past lives. And then we are bringing some of those tendencies here. They call like karmic destiny. But even destiny is another thing that relates to the soul for some people. I don't know. I love, I try to focus, which is not really a focused practice, but it's I love the big picture. So I always go for I'm a student of Vedanta, which is a Hindu Interestingly enough, it is a Hindu spiritual system from the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra. So it's the big picture. It's really that only the divine exists. So pure consciousness is the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I try to be. I don't know if I can. No one can get close to it because you're already it anyway. So you can't get it that much closer. You already are it. So, but that's kind of the training of the mind. I try to kind of always keep that in mind. That everything is divine and sacred. It's very simple, but in a way, kind of directs me to pure consciousness and not the pieces, more the wholeness of life and not just the pieces of it, parts of it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating, isn't it? The parts of it, like you and I talking here today, and then the soul's journey, those tendencies. I mean, all of this is part of it, and it's beautiful. I think that's what makes the experience an experience.
Yeah.
The colors, right? The diversity.
Yeah.
It really feels that way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, and you're right that we're so limited by language and trying to, label these things and organize them according to different systems. The word that comes to mind for me right now is just ineffable. When you think about life and the soul and the human experience, because ineffable is something that you just can't put into words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. In a way, it can only be experienced.
Yeah.
It's I remember intuitively something came to me about the word believe. So something said to me, life is not to be believed, it's to be lived. So it's almost part of the word believe, but breaking into two words.
Yeah.
And it feels that way. And I think if we can experience and live this, which we call life, from that perspective, the broad perspective of everything coming from having the same substance per se, like everything being divine, it changes the experience in a more pleasant way per se. It has less, I feel like less unnecessary suffering. I really do. By having this perspective, this perception.
Yeah, I love that. And the word believe, right? Like be and live, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to tie it back to Yoga Nidra is all about being. We're not doing anything, right? We're just being, we're just existing. And for a lot of us, that's the hardest thing to do, to let go of our social identities, let go of what we do, and just be who we are, just exist without any agendas or expectations, with just complete acceptance of our experience as it is in the here and now. That takes courage. That is, it's a challenging thing for a lot of, it's simple, but it's not easy. And I think if we can learn how to let go of activity and just rest and be, it also helps to take away a lot of our anxieties and fears about mortality, and about these existential kind of fears, right? If we can face this existential being by practicing it, then we can know it, we can tolerate it, we can trust ourselves more, and trust the universe more, trust divine source consciousness that we'll be okay, we're supported.
Right.
That's what came to mind when you shared about believe.
Thank you for saying that. It's very clear to me. It's exactly it. And I wonder if because I'm a student of Vedanta, which is the non-dual perspective, and then they say a lot that even the idea of being a human, being a person, that's an idea, a concept, because we are just part of the whole. We are not. We don't. There's no name. There's no labels to it. But for some reason, the mind kind of creates this own reality, right? A reality of its own, and try to control control it, through the body mind. And maybe that's what it is. I think it's fear. It's exactly what you said. And then lots of fear sets in because now we feel separate from the whole. And that's natural that fear would also be more present if we are separate. It's like children being separate from their parents.
Yeah.
Right? Would make sense.
Yeah.
So it feels like the practice is really going back to it's an undoing thing, unlearning. It's funny how it is. Is that something that you said? Oh my God, yes, you did. Oh, you I think you quoted Paulo Coelho, which I think is a Brazilian writer, Portuguese Brazilian. He said, maybe the journey is not about becoming anything. Maybe it is about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so that you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. So that's it. And you have that on I think it's the first, your homepage on your website.
Yeah, I think so. I love that quote.
Me too. That's it. I mean, he just put perfectly.
Yeah, because
in words.
Yeah, because we start off life being simple and perfect beings, and then the social conditioning like layers on all these beliefs and expectations and right, and like traumas and and all these parts get layered on so that we can operate and function in a social society. And this is necessary, and it's not a bad thing that happens. It's a necessary thing that happens so that we can coexist and operate in a society. But of course, the cost of it is a compromise, is a distance from who we really truly are. And the gift is to unlearn it and to return to ourselves. Sometimes I think about breathing, right? A lot of adults, they breathe backwards. On the inhale, the stomach goes in, and on the exhale, it goes out. That's backwards breathing. People breathe very shallow, like from their chest, and it's this is the kind of breathing that is a socially conditioned breathing, because babies, they are actually breathing Ujjayi breathing, just naturally. And as stressful experiences happen to them, they learn to hold their breath more, and they learn to breathe shallower. And over time, if you count the number of breaths, right, then the result is by adulthood, we get backwards shallow breathing, which we know is associated with anxiety and all kind of mental and physical ailments. So a lot of times, like, I teach my clients how to reverse their breathing and how to breathe deeper and breathe forwards. It's a gift that we can correct as adults and go back to being who we really are, but with the knowledge and consciousness that babies don't really have.
Yes.
I mean, they have it on some level, but not like, but not in a way that can be verbally expressed like adults.
Right. I love the way you say that. That's a gift that we can always return, right? We can always unlearn. That this is always a door it could be open.
Yeah.
That's beautifully said. I absolutely agree. And I remember somebody saying something like, oh, God's not even waiting. Like we have the whole eternity to return.
Yeah.
So whenever we decide to go back, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's cute. I also love in your bio, you say, we're almost at the end. Gosh, we are going over. I can't resist. There's a Swami, okay. They always talk that way. I can't resist to just stay here. You say, Ruthie has 100% trust in her clients' ability to heal themselves when given the right conditions. So I love that too. It's almost giving the power back in a way, because we have the inner power to heal ourselves. Actually, we have everything, right, Bertha, that we need within ourselves, but we need guidance. Some of us need guidance from the outside. And you also talked about the right conditions, and that reminded me of a quote that somebody said. It was beautiful. I can't remember the name about who wrote, but somebody said that if the flower, it's not growing, it's not expanding, blossoming, don't change the flower, change the environment. Have you heard about this quote? It just resonates with me so much.
Yeah, I love that quote. It reminds me of a similar quote that an apple does better in an apple orchard than in an orange grove.
Yes. Gosh. Yeah, that's so true. So obvious, right?
Yeah, right.
Why can't we see that?
I know. I think environment is creating the healing conditions is such an important part of healing. A lot of times, really well-meaning people just get in the way of healing. And we really have to trust in a person's ability to heal themselves, like you said, and that like you have all of the tools that you really need, but maybe you just don't have the access to them. Or maybe you actually do have the access to them, but you just don't have the time and opportunity to access them because people keep getting in the way. So, or distractions keep getting in the way, right? In order to heal, we really need to quiet down so that the inner voice, the inner healer, can show up. But if we keep the door closed all the time on the inner healer, how are they supposed to show up, right? So if we're constantly like, I don't know, like checking screens or around other people in social settings, or even in, like, dare I say, even in a therapy office, right? Where, or like a healing relationship where, let's say the healer, like really, really wants the client to get better and is working too hard to help the client and starts like problem solving for them, or like, you know, like you should try this or you should do that. Or even asking too many questions. It's it becomes an interference to the client's natural healing process. So part of trusting the client's ability to heal themselves is giving them, we could set up the conditions, but then give them plenty of space. And this is something that like just creeps up in so many corners of healing. And I sometimes fall into this trap myself as a therapist, but I've been really working to be mindful and conscious of when I'm like starting to fall into that trap. This is something that was really resonated for me, as it was taught by my teacher, who kept catching me like, having agendas. And this is so subtle and so imperceptible. But if a client is picking up that the therapist has some kind of agenda, or they're trying to they don't want to disappoint the therapist, they want to, maybe take care of the therapist's feelings, and this all happens unconsciously, then that's kind of closing the door on the inner healer in some way, or it's not creating the conditions where the inner healer can, fully blossom. So it's something that nobody's perfect, and healing, it's a dance. So it's okay to make mistakes too. And but we have to just be aware of this. And I would say this is one of the main things in a healing relationship to be aware of as a healer is how much space are you giving the client to do, and trusting them to do their own work? How confident are you in this client in front of you's ability to heal themselves, so that you can have minimal necessary intervention for the client to heal? You're not telling them what to think or how to feel, but letting them arrive at those conclusions themselves.
Yes, gosh, a billion times to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Yeah, that's beautifully said. I thank you for being very humble too, right? To be able to say that, very honest, very humble, and very wise to me. Actually, humility, wisdom, and humility, they come together. They're very much together. Yes, beautiful. I love what you said. It's exactly it. And this is something that I also love that you said that it's a practice, because we are social beings, and we feel connected to people, so we want to help them, as we see them suffering unnecessarily, and we really and we tend to try too hard
Yeah.
to the end their suffering. But a lot of times, I don't know if you heard that, but some of the teachings in Vedanta, they say that actually suffering is a compassionate way of life, showing us the way to light, the way to healing, the way to divinity. It's actually a pathway.
Oh, wow.
So we are not supposed to take that away for some people trying to solve their problems, because that's actually the pathway to God.
Yes. I love that. That totally resonates.
Right.
Yes, when we try to make people feel better and take away their suffering, we're stealing their experience.
Yes.
And maybe this is their soul's journey that they need to go through.
Yes. Gosh.
But it's so hard. I think this is really like where the definition of compassion versus empathy, right? Is compassion is where I can see you suffering, and I can also recognize my own limitations, that I cannot take on the suffering and walk your journey for you, but I can be here with you. I can witness your journey. I can be here as a source of support for you in the way that you need me to support you. But I can't have this experience for you or take it away from you. So that's, for me, that's like the essence of what compassion really is.
Yeah. And that's why you use the word compassionate. Compassionate psychotherapist, right? Not empathic.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Gosh, it's been a beautiful conversation in connection. Thank you so much, Ruthie, for being you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Valeria. I really, really enjoyed speaking with you, and and just also like just feel really connected to your beautiful energy and your gentle wisdom. And yeah, thank you so much. This is really a pleasure.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's a reflection in a way, I think. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I want to mention your services. You offer individual therapy, pre and postpartum therapy, groups too. So you have group sessions, and yoga nidra healing, of course, was the topic of our conversation today. Did I miss anything, Ruthie? I'll have the websites also, mentalfitnesstherapy.org, and then I'll have the podcast link. Both of them will be clickable on the podcast notes. But did I miss anything
no,
about your services?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, so you're good with
that,
the technicalities here. But before we say goodbye, I do want to ask you a question about freedom.
Sure.
That's the ending question.
Okay.
What is freedom to you? How do you see this concept of freedom? What is to be free?
Well, let me just take a few breaths to speak to the heart, from the heart to this question. So what came to me is that freedom is the story that we tell ourselves. We're free to tell ourselves how we would like to experience life. And I know that, like, There's a philosopher, Eric Fromm, who talks about freedom from and freedom to. Right. So I think that freedom is just being here, being yourself, feeling safe enough to be in your body and your mind at the same time. And, and we're all free to shape the narrative of our stories. So whatever the external circumstances that happen, it gives us an opportunity. It gives us the freedom to shape the story that we tell ourselves about what's happening. And if we have, the power of that, then it makes, can make life a little easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's not to love about that answer?
Yes. And I want to end with, I want to share also a quote from one of my favorite sages, Jewish sages, Reb Nachman of Breslov, who I think it really speaks to, what it means to truly be free. And he says, "Never despair, never. It is forbidden to give up hope. Remember that things can go from the very worst to the very best in just the blink of an eye." And I think that, and then he says, if you believe that you can damage, then believe you can fix. And if you believe you can harm, then believe that you can heal. And I think this just gives us so much agency and autonomy to shape our own experience, knowing that we are the architects of our lives. We are responsible and accountable for our choices. But this is freedom and responsibility. They go together.
Yes. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ruthie, for being true to you, to your heart. I love the way you kept saying that since the very beginning of our conversation. I want to come from the heart. That's the place, which it goes back to the idea of the soul, the invisible world. So thank you so much for being you, true to your heart, and having the courage to do what you do, in the way you do it, the way you express this. Your expression is in this lifetime. It's truly, truly beautiful. Thank you again for your presence.
Thank you so much, Valeria.
And we'll talk again. We'll definitely talk again in a little bit. Bye for now, Ruthie.
Be well.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Ruthie Eisenberg and her work, please visit mentalfitnesstherapy.org and naalayoga.podbean.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.